This is Saturn Girl. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, comment below because I want to know what you think, and it helps me out with the algorithm. Do me a favor too and click the bell when you subscribe so that you get notified when my new videos drop. And my videos are the best. But why are we gathered here today? Well, this is another edition of my transit videos, where we go over a transit and what it means for us, what it means in natal charts, and what it means for you in particular. And we'll do some fun little horoscopes for you by rising sign. So what is it that's happening that I'm so excited about? Well, Venus, my mama, and Our Lady of lewd and lascivious love, enters her home sign of Libra on November the 8th. And she'll remain there until December the 4th. So what does this mean for us, for you and for me? Well, let's take a look. Well, first, what does Venus signify in astrology? She's love, beauty, and desire. She's our taste and aesthetic. She's pleasure and enjoyment. She's art, music, and literature. She's our social life and how we relate to people, not just romantically. But what about Libra? Libra's ruled by Venus and therefore gets much of its meanings from her. For example, Libra is all about social grace and awareness, isn't it? You know, like we think of people with charm and tact who really know how to work a room, yeah? She's you see, us Libra types aren't bound by typical rules or clearly defined boundaries. We're more bound by vague and nebulous social conventions and what we deem as appropriate at the time. Aesthetic awareness is another quality, right? Like we think of fashion faux pas or combinations, right? Like a Libra might say, this top goes with that shirt. You know, don't put stripes with solids, or I don't know. You feel me? We can be incredibly superficial, but we're also aware of what is pleasing to the eye. Now, Libra is also associated with romance as well, isn't it? You know, Venus, yeah. We think of promiscuous people, like me, Libra moon. Or, you know, another one that came to mind was Bill Clinton, who apparently has a Libra Venus. So we like nice things and attractive people and attractive play partners. I know I do. Venus is all about pleasure, right? And we Libra types need a lot of it. Well, Libra also gets much of its meaning from being at the autumnal equinox. And if you follow me, you might remember that signs primarily get their meanings from A, the planets that rule them, and B, their place in the solar cycle. And for Libra, it's the autumnal equinox, right? This is the time of equal night and equal day, just before the nights get longer in Scorpio. In the northern hemisphere, right? You see, this is where we get the ideas of harmony, balance, and diplomacy, so often associated with Libra. We also get those ideas of equivocation, decision, and judgment. You see, these ideas are where Libra people get the bad rap, moon included, for being wishy-washy, not picking sides, and being too agreeable because guess what? We don't want to rock the boat. And then we end up trying to placate everyone, which does what? It just pisses everyone off, right? And then Libras, right? Libra people, then we're all just like, why are they mad at me? Are you mad at me? It's what Cancer and Libra have in problem. We think everyone's mad at us, you know. And we want people to say, oh no, we're not mad at you. Even though they probably are. Anyway, well, what does Venus in her home sign of Libra bring? Well, it brings us people who create beauty, like artists and musicians. For example, Freddie Mercury from Queen, one of the most amazing voices and vocal ranges, and a very fastidious writer of music, arrangements, right? And then we think of Tom Petty, who's very famous for creating some iconic melodies. And then Chuck Berry, who was quite famous back in the 1950s and 60s for partly giving birth to the rock and roll sound with his incredible guitar riffs. We think of performers like Will Smith, who's, a very beautiful person, right? And sort of known for, not so much for tact anymore, right? After giving a big slap, slap, slap to Chris Rock, And then we think of, Mr. Barbie, Ryan Gosling, who's also a very beautiful person, right? And he sings and plays music, right? Didn't he perform? I think that was him. I think he performed. I at least know he can sing. And then we have Sean Poopy Combs, right? Or Puffy, whatever his name is. And he apparently is a fashion designer too, besides just being, a musical artist. And then we think of rappers, right? Some of my favorite rappers, like E40, If Fifth Was a Fifth, right? Or KRS-One. And I know because of KRS-One. KRS-One is also very famous for, his political opinions. And then we have Big Daddy Kane, who did the song Pimpin' Ain't Easy, right? I mean, is there a more Libra Venus thing than that? Pimpin' Ain't Easy? I guess more Libra Venus would be Pimpin' Is Easy, right? Anyway. And then we have authors like Stephen King, right? Who crafted horror stories, but with incredible vivid imagery. And they've many of them have become movies, right? H.P. Lovecraft, who also wrote scary stories, right? And was sort of famous among, later occult types and everything, even though H.P. Lovecraft was incredibly racist. Just be aware of that. And then we have F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote The Great Gatsby, which is one of the pinnacle pieces of literature in American history. Then we have T.S. Eliot, the incredible poet, who crafted one of my favorite poems, known as Burnt Norton, where he does an exposition on time and existence. And then we have directors, right? And a lot of them. We've got David Fincher, who directed Seven, which was also released during Venus and Libra. And it's a beautiful film. I mean, it's horrible. It's a horror film. And very violent, but it's beautifully done. The cinematography is gorgeous. Or look at Fight Club, right? Which again, but the cinematography is very interesting. Then we have James Cameron, who did Titanic, right? And what else? Terminator and Terminator 2. And most recently had done the Avatar films. Again, films of great beauty. Yes? I mean, at least Titanic and Avatar. I don't know about Terminator. Unless you really have a thing for Arnold, I guess, And some people do, Then we have Judd Apatow, right, who did This Is 40 and Knocked Up, which are sort of Venusian. And then we have Guy Ritchie, who did Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And he also did the Sherlock Holmes movie, too. So, also very amazing cinematography and quite an eye for beauty. Then Peter Jackson, who did The Lord of the Rings. Again, these were monumental films, bringing some of the most epic fantasy tales into visual media, right? And then we have Terry Gilliam, who's renowned for his visual art. When he was working with Monty Python, the English comedy troupe in the 1970s, he did some amazing animations. And then he's very famous for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, one of my favorite films about Hunter S. Thompson. And it also is beautifully done with amazing cinematography in order to capture some of the, the imagination of an inebriated experience, to put it lightly. And then we have Jon Favreau, who did Iron Man, pretty straightforward. Woody Allen, who I'm not really a fan of, but he did famous films like Annie Hall, etc., etc., etc. Then had Scarlett Johansson in A Night in Paris. I never saw any of his films, but you may like him. I don't know. He's just, I'm Woody Allen. I'm sorry, I just don't like him. Anyway, then we have So, speaking of directors, why is it that we see so many directors, you think, with the Libra Venus? You see, I think of the phrase, I took some film classes, mise en scène, right, which is French for what's in the scene. It's about the proper placement of things to make them pleasing to the eye and to catch your attention, to capture your gaze. You see, Libra types have a keen sense of how to arrange things in order to grab you. For example, there's the rule of the thirds, right? There's the proper placement of faces and such in a shot. And then there's also a principle where you never cross the line of action, right? Because it creates very uncomfortable visual anomalies, right? All of a sudden people switch places, right? And always pay attention so that you have the same clothes from one scene to another, right? Like, anyway, your clothes are red. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Oh, who else? Astrologer Liz Green. She was the only astrologer I found with Libra Venus, but I thought it was worth mentioning because she was a big inspiration of mine growing up in my 20s. Oh, many, many years ago, because now I'm 40. So now we also see events that correlate with Libra Venus. And going in the direction of Venusian harmony and reconciliation, we do often see news regarding peace and conflict resolution while Venus is in Libra. For example, September the 3rd of 1783, Britain and the recently liberated American colonies, no longer colonies, signed the Treaty of Paris, which ended the American Revolution and made Britain formally recognize them as an independent sovereign nation. Then fast forward to September the 5th, 1978. On the last day or so of Venus in Libra, we had Jimmy Carter kick off the Egypt-Israel Peace Conference, right? So Jimmy Carter, a Libra sun, was sort of presiding, right? This was at Camp David in the United States. And Anwar Sadat representing Egypt, and Menachem Begin representing Israel came, and we came out of that with the Camp David Accords, which is a monumental peace deal, right? So emblematic of Venus in Libra, but the actual thing was delivered while Venus was in Scorpio, which probably indicates why it never turned out the way it was supposed to. And then once again, around the same time, August 12th of that same year, 1978, Japan and China signed the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. So this was quite interesting because they had a very contentious past, especially going back to the Second World War with the destruction of Nanjing, the things that the Japanese army inflicted upon Chinese citizens is indescribable. I would get banned by YouTube if I went into detail. Disgusting. Mass R-word. Mass, death. Destruction. Women and children. It's horrible. Anyway, these are monumental peace deals, aren't they? Well, what about this time around? I hope we see the possibility of a ceasefire in Gaza, but I seriously doubt it. I don't think that's possible right now. But we could see other peace deals looming on the horizon. For example, there could be a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. I don't know, but I've been hearing whisperings of that sort of thing, and Venus in Libra does encourage it. We could also see other agreements, right? Like between labor unions and employers. I believe SAG-AFTRA, part of them is still striking, right? Or maybe it's the Writers Guild. I have to go back and look. The United Auto Workers famously came to a big deal. And now Sean Fain, who I love and adore, is looking ahead, right, to new actions. So hopefully we will see additional deals and compensation to workers who have been struggling with their employers. Well, what else do we have going on? In arts news, there's the Country Music Awards, which I could care less about, but sort of Venusian. You know, it's just dominated by a certain crowd now. In the old days, it was like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger. And now it's, you know, what's that dude's name? Oliver, whatever? I don't know. Anyway, we also see a slew of movie releases. The Marvels is coming out. A new Hunger Games movie, which is probably getting us ready for the real thing. I'm kidding, half kidding. Something called It's a Wonderful Knife. It sounds like my type of movie. It's a wonderful knife, right? Anyway, and then there's Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon. And it looks very interesting. Well, but what does this mean for you in particular? It's a time to enjoy things, isn't it? To find pleasure, get inspiration, to have fun with fashion and your appearance. Be creative. Enjoy the arts. Go to concerts. Go to museums. Visit an art show. Go to movies, right? See films. Talk about it with your friends. But the whole sign house, which Libra is for you, will tell you more about how this will express, because that will be the house in your chart Venus is touring. So we're going to do a few brief horoscopes now for each rising sign, okay? Remember, if you don't know your rising sign, you can always look it up if you know your birth time on most astrology apps. If you don't know your birth time, you can go ahead and watch this for your sun sign. But I really, really recommend you find your rising sign, because this will be more applicable. So first of all, let's start with Aries, right? So with Aries, Venus is entering your 7th house of partners. And that means Venus had been touring your 6th house since around October the 8th. You likely were focused on getting yourself together, organized, knocking things off the list, right? You may have had to reconcile with people that you've been in open conflict with. The 6th house is often enemies. You may have had to reconcile with people, maybe apologize. Now it's time to bring some sparkle and fun into your relationships. When Venus is in our 7th house, we often meet new partners or find some new fun with our existing partners. For me, it's when I started dating again. After a while of, just transitioning, not focusing on it. Well, oops, I'm so sorry. We should have been doing this on the chart. Well, you see Venus here in Virgo. I'm so sorry, my Taurus friends. Let's do this first. So, and then in just a few short hours, you see Venus, Mama Venus moving. Keep going, Mama Venus. You're almost there. You're almost there. Whoa! And she entered Libra, right? This is tomorrow, November the 8th, about 5 a.m. Where's that? 5 a.m.? I don't know. Whatever time this is. Canada. I guess my last person was in Canada. I don't know if this is mountain time or whatever. Anyway. So, but you see here, it's tomorrow. For most of us. Okay? Now, we just talked about Aries Rising. Let's go to Taurus Rising. Yes? So for our Taurus Rising friends, Venus is entering your 6th house of illness and obligation, which means she was touring your 5th house of children and pleasure. So you may have procrastinated, right, when it came to your responsibility. You probably didn't feel like exerting yourself, did you? Now, you'll likely feel the pull to follow through on your obligations, particularly cleaning, because my mama Venus rules cleanliness, right? Have you been avoiding certain chores? For example, is the refrigerator dirty? I mean, I almost said, is your refrigerator running? You better go catch it. You know, is your refrigerator dirty? Do you need a vent cleaning, right? Your air. Have you prepared for the snow, right? What do they do? Your clean out drain, and if you have a pool, no one really has pools anymore, but you know what I'm saying. Like I said, Venus rules cleanliness, and this is where we give her a bath after her filth house. Her filth house. I mean, the fifth house is the filth house. So after her fifth house filthy fun, I guess, she needs a good bath. I know I needed one. This is also a time to think about nutrition and making positive changes to your health if you have to get back on the exercise wagon, right? But now let's go to my Femini friends. Gemini, I'm calling it Femini today, right? I'm a Femini, not a Gemini. Well, that means Venus has just entered your fifth house of pleasure and children, which means Venus was in your fourth house of home and parents. So you may have been occupied with making your home pretty again, right? Make my house pretty again. You may have felt the need to decorate, bring light and color to your living space. Likewise, you may have had a more harmonious relationship with your parents during this time. Maybe they helped you out in a bind or whatever, or gave you a gift. Now, you're going to want to enjoy yourself in your space, right? Because the fifth house is now highlighted. If you have kids, you'll want them to enjoy it too. You'll want to spend some additional time with them. Take them on fun outings, right? Like I'm going to take my daughter probably somewhere this weekend. If you have kids, it's fun to take them on outings because school just started and it's sort of a morale booster, Now, speaking of your own morale, you need to enjoy yourself too and have fun. The fifth house is, of course, sex also. Have some fun. I know I will. Well, what about our Cancer Rising homies? So for Cancer Rising, your fourth house is highlighted. Venus is entering that place. She was in your third house of communication and community and siblings. So were you able to reconnect with a brother or sister? Did they come to visit? Were you able to get out in your community and enjoy yourself? Maybe a staycation or fun event? Connecting with your community likely led you to appreciate your home space as well, right? What would make your home space more pleasurable? A little cleaning, a little rearranging, more light, right? Opening things up. Some fun plants, perhaps for color, or putting up a painting. A painting? Maybe some scented candle, right? Venus is the pleasurable senses and stuff. So you want things that are pleasing to the senses. Visually and, scents, pleasant smells. I have a rose candle. I love it. Anyway. Well, maybe your space, make your space a pleasure palette. Right? I mean, that's got an interesting connotation. I'm thinking a dungeon, but maybe I'm just projecting on you. Now, what about our Leo Rising friends? For Leo Rising, Venus is entering your third house of siblings and community, which means she was in your second house of money and personal resources. And you may have seen your financial situation improve a little bit. Perhaps you got a small raise at work or some other sort of perk. Sometimes they give us time off or, a free meal or whatever. If you have a small business, you likely got more clients or had some investment payoff, if you invested more into your business. Now is the time, though, to make connections in your community. Get out. Go to a farmer's market. I always say that because that's what I think of. I like produce. Go to local events, whatever they are, and mix it up. I've been going to, more adult-themed events, which is getting me connected to people in my community in the way that I would like to be connected, right? The third house is also about communication. You could be more eloquent and charming than usual, so take advantage. You could also reconnect with the sibling, as I said about a previous sign, and find that you really enjoy having that support in your life. Like my sister and I got very close, and she's a big support. My little brother is a big source of support. I say little, but he's 36. Well, anyway, what about our Virgo Rising homies? So for Virgo Rising, that means Venus is now in your house of money and resources, which means she was also transiting your first house of self. And you probably caught some fun glances, didn't you? Oh. Did you buy some new clothes? Try out a new look? Gain some confidence? When Venus goes through our first house, we often feel the need to strut a little bit. Like John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. I can tell by the way you walk. Da, 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 da. I mean, probably none of you remember that anyway. That was a 1970s movie. So, well, now the focus would be slowly going to shift from feeling pretty and charismatic to some of the rewards, right? Minding your money and your stuff, right? We get noticed often when Venus is in the first house and get some sort of, gain a reward from that in the second house. We may have been noticed, right? We get opportunities for raises and promotions. Or bosses give us free stuff, right? You know how the office will frequently give you a pizza party instead of a raise? Yeah. That's a frequent ploy. You're all family, right? You're our family. So we're giving you a pizza party instead of a raise because, you don't give your family money, right? If you have a small business, you could see a modest increase in sales or clients, or maybe some new supplies or services that you had to invest in start paying off. Like, for example, I invested in a website and I had to do some other things, right, to make myself legit. Start an LLC and whatever. So you feel me? But let's move on to our Libra Rising friends. So for Libra Rising, this means Venus is entering your first house, right? Your first house of self. And Venus was transiting your 12th house of mental health and isolation. And you probably had to attend to some self-care, didn't you? Maybe you made some progress in therapy or began to address mental health issues. The 12th house rules, yes, mental illness, but also addiction. Sometimes we just need to isolate ourselves a little to heal and process difficult memories and some of these things we've been struggling with. Now Venus in your first house is where the clouds begin to part. And you may feel a resurgence of energy, yes. This is the time to sparkle, to feel a renewed sense of self-esteem, right? A renewed sense of self-esteem, and to doll yourself up. You'll want to change your appearance to reflect this new confidence that you're going to be feeling. If you've been feeling a bit tired, run down, or antisocial, this will be a very welcome change. It'll be like you're coming out of your 12th house shell. Yeah. Well, what about our Scorpio rising friends? So this means Venus is entering your 12th house of isolation and self-destruction. Venus was in your 11th house of hopes and friends, and you may have found new sources of support, especially in achieving your goals. It often feels like people help us, and we feel more optimistic about our direction and what we want. Now, though, you'll likely be losing steam, won't you? Your energy is waning. If it's like, or this way. It's like you're running on empty, losing fuel, right? So your energy's waning and you'll need time away from all this excitement to attend to some self-care, because I bet you haven't been doing it. And this is a time to be reflective and not overexerting ourselves. This is not a social time, but rather a recharging time. We often become aware that we're trying to do too much or pushing ourselves, and we need to take some time out, don't we? This is an opportunity to seek help if we've been struggling and to attend to our blind spots. And these often rear their heads while we're meeting all these different sorts of people and making connections. Because people reflect new sides of ourselves that we weren't particularly aware of, right? Well, let's go to Sagittarius Rising. For our Sagittarius homies, that means Venus is entering the 11th house of hopes and friends, right? She was in your 10th house of life direction and career and opportunities, right? And some of those opportunities may have popped up for you during that time. We often get some good press or recognition at work, which can bring us job interviews, and we have to polish up our resume. This is a time when we cultivate a more harmonious relationship with people at work or with bosses in particular, and people of authority. Right? Getting along with the boss. I don't mean being a suck up. I mean being yourself, right? But also being, being a bit chill. Yeah. So, you see, this harmony at work can often lead to more pleasurable associations in your private life as well, right? We might start getting invited to parties or other events. Yeah. We find more people support us, 11th house, yes. Or that we get help from our friends when we have a problem, right? I just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean on, right? Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend, right? Like the song Lean On Me. Yeah, sort of indicative of this thing. We often meet people who are like-minded or into the same stuff that we are, right? But let's move on to our Capricorn Rising Hermes. Our Hermes for Capricorn Rising. You see, for Cap Rising, Venus is entering the 10th house of life direction and career, meaning that she was in your 11th house, your 9th house, your 9th house previously. 9th house of beliefs, travel, and education. So you were probably exposed to new ideas and values. We often rediscover harmony or beauty in our spiritual or philosophical life, as well as a renewed sense of pleasure in it. We sort of retreat. Maybe retreat is the wrong word, but we enter back into that space for some sort of renewed clarity. If you've been lagging or avoiding a spiritual practice or commitment, I bet you felt compelled to get back on the wagon, but it's something more enjoyable rather than a chore. Now, after some well-deserved and practical contemplation, right, and renewed inspiration, it's time to get to work. What do your values look like in practice? It's time to live them. The best place to do this is often at work, where we tend to spend most of our time and where we really get tested on our blind spots, right? The best place to do this, like I said, at work. You could see opportunities open up. You could see bosses or authority figures cheer you on and have a generally more harmonious dealing with them. You must take advantage of this brief surge in your popularity. So, now what about Aquarius Rising? That's me and my friends. So Aquarius Rising, this means Venus is entering our 9th house of beliefs, travel, and education. And she was in our 8th house of death, debt, and other people's stuff, which often makes us feel like we need to atone for things that we regret, and reconcile with people that we may have wronged or that we had conflicts with. Did you feel the need to apologize or forgive someone else? Did you get a gift or a return on a small investment? Now is the time when we feel compelled to examine the context of those feelings. Why did we seek forgiveness and reconciliation? Are our values, or rather these experiences, emblematic? Are they emblematic of a more essential truth, right? Is this an indication that we are all connected in some way, or that our influences do affect other people, right? It's important to see that we do have an impact on each other, for good or for ill. And we connect these impulses back to our spiritual values and beliefs about how we exist and why, if you believe any of that mumbo jumbo. We will feel the need to live our values once again, to be contemplative. And we're likely exposed to new ideas as well, which can enrich our current one. I don't know about you, but I've been getting the itch to suddenly be more regular with my meditation again, and to go back to some spiritual treatises. I had a mentor of mine have me start reading this, The Science of Peace by Bhagavan Das. So I'm going to start on that, which I meant to start yesterday or the day before. I can't remember, but one of those. Now let's move on to Pisces Rising. Our Pisces Rising friends. Hello, Pisces Rising. So this means Venus is entering your 8th house of death, debt, and other people's resources. And she was in your 7th house of relationships. I bet you noticed more harmony or pleasure, right? Pleasurable dealings with your partner, perhaps. If you were single, you may have met someone or someone's. Did you take your spouse on some fun dates, or your partner? Maybe you got more matches on dating apps than usual. Happened to me a little bit. On a less exciting level, you could have resolved some conflicts, either legal affairs or with past partners, or both. I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking like good luck in divorce proceedings or something like that. But now it's a time when uncomfortable memories and things left undone start to loom over your mind's eye. We feel compelled to make amends with people who have wronged us and to take responsibility for the crappy things we may have done. We also get a little bit of luck with our investments. Sometimes we have an unexpected payout or a refund. Or maybe we get our debt reduced in some way or pay something off. For people who are in relationships, this is often a time when we start to share money and resources with our partners. Like, if we've moved in together or something like that, then, which can also happen when Venus is transiting the 4th house. You can move in with a partner. Forgot to mention that earlier. Yeah, I think that was for our Cancer Rising friends. Yes. Anyway. The whole shared resources thing, where we start pooling our money together, or we end up buying something big together. Well, I hope that was useful and meaningful. Remember to like and subscribe and to click that bell so that you get notified of my new videos. And please check out my other videos because I have tons and tons of educational content and I'm pretty cute and funny. I mean, I'm just trying to make myself laugh. If any of you do, it's purely incidental, right? I also do the best readings. It's scientifically proven. You can visit me at my website, frankielynch.com, to book a reading or to get more information. And my contact information is below in the description. But more importantly, you're beautiful. I love you. And have a wonderful whatever it is you're having.